Murli Notes, 15th November 2022. The phenomenon of polarization. Things break easily when each opposing side is equal. Either there can be balance or there can be tearing apart. What makes the difference? A clue Baba gives is that once you belong to God, the world turns against you. Any minority that exceeds 10% creates the beginnings of tearing apart. In the Golden Age, equality produces balance, and in the Iron Age, it produces absolute conflict. Circumstances of civil war arise when the balance is 5 Pandavas to 100 Kauravas. You are a very tiny minority. You face much opposition from the majority. The main conflict is between men and women. The patriarchal culture demands dominance over women, children, animals, earth, water, air, fire, and ether. The karmic backlash is an energy that intensifies the conflict. Maximum conflict occurs in the name of religion. Materialism creates poverty. God defines the consequences of karma, akarma, and vikarma. Vedantic Hindus interpret this phrase, which is a quote from the Gita, as karma may be either negative karma or avoidance of karma. They think all karma binds the soul. Their aim is nirvana, which means there are no bondages of karma. They use this quotation from the Gita as the justification for leaving their worldly lives, taking sannyas, and retiring to the jungle where there is no temptation of any kind of karma. They consider karma to be action for gaining money, power, prestige, children, household, etc., all of which puts the person in karmic bondage. Baba counteracts their arguments, saying that there are 3 kinds of karma: sukarma, vikarma, and akarma. Sukarma is action performed according to Shrimat. Vikarma is action performed according to Parmat and Manmat. Manmat is the internalized form of Parmat. Akarma is action performed during the time of Satyuga, where there is no need for Sukarma and no possibility of Vikarma. He clarifies that in the context of the path of devotion, no matter how much charity, rituals, or other spiritual practices are done, the people are in a tailspin of decline. Charity and donations are given to sinful souls by sinful souls. Instead of reducing the weight of sin, it is increased. All who had been pure are now corrupt. Baba gives the spiritual information once again identically to the previous kalpa and makes such corrupt ones into deities by teaching Sahaj Raj Yoga and Gyan. That means, understand that you are a depleted soul and sit in remembrance of the Father to restore your lost spiritual power and purity. He teaches you how to restore your purity It doesn't matter how much you make a commitment to not perform any negative karma. It is useless and ineffective unless you are also practicing yoga, that is, focusing your soul on God the Supreme Soul and drawing spiritual power into yourself. The accumulation of negative karma over many births cannot be burnt out of the soul unless you establish yourself in yoga with the Father. This fire of yoga is what lifts the weight of sin. The power of accumulated negative karma to replicate itself is greater than your power. Therefore, your only way to neutralize this force is to accumulate greater amounts of spiritual power directly from the Supreme Soul into yourself. This is called yoga. In this way, yoga removes the power of sin. This is also called the purification of the soul. Even if you cease to perform any kind of negative karma, you still have an outstanding account from previous births which must be neutralized. The only solution is to establish yourself in focused yoga, soul-conscious remembrance of the Supreme Soul as much as possible for the rest of your life. This yoga is called spiritual income, which settles your outstanding account of karmic debt. This is why yoga is classified as income. No impure soul can return to nirvana. Each soul has their own predestined role and their own predestined status. Just as each physical life comes with a predestined role and status, so it is also for each soul, above and beyond their individual lives. This refers to how many lives the soul will pass through and when the soul will first arrive on earth. Each soul has a specific position in the rosary of souls which exists in the soul world. This is predetermined and not chosen by God or by yourself. It is eternally who you are. The higher your number, the greater the difference between who you are eternally, originally, and your condition at the end of the cycle. Your spiritual practice and study at the confluence age, and how you conduct yourself during the time of the copper and iron ages reflect how that gap is created, then closed during the time cycle. Just as metal is placed in a crucible to heat it to the point where the gold separates from the base metal, in the same way, you generate the fire of yoga to a point of such intensity that the impurities in the soul separate from your essence and are burnt. This may be intensely painful spiritually, psychologically, socially, and physically, but it is the way of purification of your essential being. The more intense is your yoga, the more intense is the backlash. Do not interpret the backlash as anything negative or as signifying anything other than that this is the process of purification. No one is aware that this is the way that sins or negative karma are redeemed. You say that your yoga keeps on breaking. but this is the opposition from Maya. You are in between the two most powerful forces in existence. On one hand, the magnetic force of God that pulls you to the spiritual state, free from the bondage to matter and from the pull of the pairs of opposites. On the other side, there is the pull of matter, your body, your bodily relationships, possessions, and everything that connects you to life on earth. Second by second, you have to choose which magnetic force to be open to. Throughout the confluence age, both forces will exert variable pulls on you. The force of your outstanding karmic accounts will also exert its own pull. These influences are very subtle, albeit very strong, and it is not easy to discern what is happening moment by moment. Even if you live a spiritual life, there are physical pulls of status, possessions, temporal power, those who are supportive and loyal, your physical, mental, and emotional health, and other facilities. You have to become free and independent from all these in order to be fully open to the pull of the power of God. This is why he continues to tell you to position yourself as if you are about to leave your body. As well as being a process of purification of the soul, it is also a deep and complete preparation for your final death in the current time cycle. Obviously, very few people will study and practice Raj Yoga at this level. Allow yourself to move forward little by little and aim to retain your balance. Om Shanti.